Bear cub trapped in an overheated greenhouse atrium. What this baby did was shocking. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. The morning sun beat down mercilessly on the glass walls of the greenhouse, turning the entire structure into a furnace. Inside, exotic plants drooped under the intense heat, their leaves curling at the edges. The temperature had already climbed past 90 degrees, and it was barely 10 in the morning. Zara Collins wiped the sweat from her forehead as she watched her 18-month-old daughter, Luna, play on the kitchen floor. The little girl was stacking colorful blocks, her chubby fingers working with determination. Zara smiled at the sight. Luna had always been different from other babies. There was something in her eyes, a depth that seemed almost otherworldly. Even the pediatrician had commented on how alert and aware she seemed for her age. "Mama, look!" Luna pointed toward the window that faced the greenhouse. Her small voice carried an urgency that made Zara pause. Zara glanced outside but saw nothing unusual. The greenhouse stood silent and still, its glass panels reflecting the harsh sunlight. Her husband, Kai, had built it 3 years ago when they moved to this remote property in the mountains. He'd wanted to grow tropical plants year-round, a hobby that had consumed most of his free time before Luna was born. "What is it, sweetie?" Zara asked, kneeling beside her daughter. But Luna had already lost interest and returned to her blocks. Or so it seemed. Zara noticed that Luna kept glancing toward the greenhouse, her tiny brow furrowed in concentration. It was as if she could sense something that Zara couldn't. 20 minutes later, Kai returned from his morning run, his shirt soaked with sweat. He grabbed a water bottle from the refrigerator and took long, thirsty gulps. "It's going to be a scorcher today," he said, running a hand through his damp hair. "I'm glad we installed that new cooling system in the greenhouse last week." Zara nodded absently. She was still thinking about Luna's behavior. The little girl had been unusually quiet all morning, and she kept staring out the window with an intensity that made Zara uncomfortable. "Maybe we should check on the plants," Zara suggested. "Make sure the cooling system is working properly." Kai shrugged. "I checked it yesterday. Everything was fine. Besides, I programmed it to kick in automatically when the temperature gets too high." But as they spoke, neither of them noticed the small brown shape huddled against the far wall of the greenhouse. A bear cub, no more than 4 months old, had somehow found its way inside during the night. The automatic vent that should have closed at dawn had malfunctioned, trapping the young animal inside as the temperature began to rise. The cub's small chest rose and fell rapidly as it panted in the oppressive heat. Its thick fur, designed for mountain winters, was now a curse in the greenhouse inferno. The little bear had tried to find a way out, clawing at the glass walls until its paws were raw, but every exit was sealed tight. Luna suddenly stood up, dropping her blocks with a clatter that made both her parents jump. She walked to the back door with the determined gait of someone much older than her 18 months. Her small hands pressed against the glass as she stared directly at the greenhouse. "Mama," she said, her voice carrying a note of distress that Zara had never heard before. "Help." Zara felt a chill run down her spine despite the heat. There was something in Luna's tone, something that spoke of understanding beyond her years. The little girl wasn't asking for help for herself. She was asking for help for someone else. "What's wrong, Luna?" Zara asked, joining her daughter at the door. Luna pointed directly at the greenhouse, her small finger trembling. "Hurt," she whispered, "very hurt." Kai joined them, his expression puzzled. What's she pointing at? That's when they saw it. A slight movement in the far corner of the greenhouse, barely visible through the condensation that had begun to form on the glass walls. Something was in there, something that shouldn't be. Is that... Kai squinted, trying to make out the shape. Is that an animal? Zara's heart skipped a beat. She could just make out a small, dark form pressed against the greenhouse wall. Whatever it was in serious trouble. The temperature inside that greenhouse had to be well over 100 degrees by now. "We have to do something," Zara said, already moving toward the door. But Luna was ahead of her. The little girl had somehow managed to unlock the child-proof door handle and was toddling toward the greenhouse with surprising speed. Her movements were purposeful, as if she knew exactly what she needed to do. "Luna, no!" Zara called, running after her daughter. The bear cub lifted its head as it heard voices approaching. Its dark eyes were glazed with heat exhaustion, but there was still a spark of hope in them. The little bear had been calling for its mother for hours, but no answer had come. Now, through the haze of its suffering, it sensed that help might finally be near. Luna reached the greenhouse door first. She pressed her small hands against the hot glass, her palms leaving tiny prints on the surface. The bear cub, seeing the small human child, let out a weak whimper that was barely audible. But Luna heard it. More than that, she seemed to understand it. "Mama, open," Luna said urgently, tugging at the greenhouse door handle. "Open now." Zara caught up to her daughter just as Kai arrived with the key to the greenhouse. His face was pale as he realized what they were dealing with. "That's a bear cub," he said, his voice tight with concern. "Where's its mother?" As if in answer to his question, a deep, rumbling growl echoed from the forest that bordered their property. All three of them froze. The mother bear was close, and she would be looking for her baby. Luna, however, seemed unafraid. She tugged harder at the door handle, her small face scrunched with determination. "Open," she repeated, more insistently this time. The bear cub's breathing was becoming more labored. Time was running out. Kai's hands shook as he fumbled with the greenhouse key. The metal was already hot from the sun, burning his fingers as he tried to insert it into the lock. Sweat dripped into his eyes, making it even harder to see what he was doing. "Hurry," Zara whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was more worried about the bear cub or the fact that its mother was somewhere nearby, probably getting closer by the minute. Luna pressed her face against the glass door, her breath fogging the surface. The bear cub had somehow managed to drag itself closer to where they stood. Its small black nose was pressed against the glass from the inside, just inches from Luna's face. The little girl placed her palm flat against the glass, right where the cub's paw was resting on the other side. "Friend," Luna whispered, her voice barely audible. "Scared friend." Zara felt her heart break at the tenderness in her daughter's voice, but she also felt a growing sense of unease. How could Luna know that the bear cub was scared? How could she possibly understand what the animal was feeling? The key finally turned in the lock, but as Kai pulled the door open, a blast of superheated air hit them like a physical blow. It was like opening an oven. The temperature inside had to be at least 120 degrees. "We can't go in there," Kai said, stepping back instinctively. "It's too hot. We'll get heat stroke in minutes." But Luna was already moving. Before either parent could stop her, the little girl had slipped through the partially open door and into the greenhouse. The heat hit her small body immediately, but she didn't seem to notice. She walked straight toward the bear cub with the confidence of someone who had done this 100 times before. "Luna!" Zara screamed, starting to follow her daughter into the greenhouse. Kai grabbed her arm. "You can't. The heat will kill you. Look at her." Zara looked, and what she saw made no sense. Luna was walking through the greenhouse as if the temperature was perfectly normal. Her cheeks weren't even flushed. She knelt down beside the bear cub and gently placed her small hand on its head. The moment Luna touched the bear cub, something extraordinary happened. The little animal's labored breathing began to slow and deepen. Its eyes, which had been glazed with heat exhaustion, became clearer and more focused. It was as if Luna's touch had somehow given the cub strength. "What's happening?" Kai whispered, staring at his daughter in amazement. Zara couldn't answer. She was watching Luna communicate with the bear cub in a way that defied explanation. The little girl was making soft cooing sounds, the same sounds she made when she was trying to comfort her stuffed animals. But this was different. The bear cub was responding, making small huffing sounds in return. Luna stood up and took the bear cub's paw in her tiny hand. "Come," she said clearly. "Come with Luna." The bear cub, which moments before had been too weak to lift its head, struggled to its feet. It was still weak, still suffering from the heat, but somehow Luna's presence had given it the will to keep fighting. Together, the little girl and the bear cub began walking toward the door. Luna moved slowly, patiently, never letting go of the cub's paw. She talked to it constantly in her baby voice, offering comfort and encouragement. "Good friend," she said. "Luna help friend. Mama and Papa help too." But as they reached the door, disaster struck. The mother bear emerged from the forest, and she was not alone. She was followed by 2 other adult bears, both females. One of them was clearly agitated, pacing back and forth at the edge of the clearing. The other stood perfectly still, but her posture radiated danger. The mother bear stood up on her hind legs, towering over 7 feet tall. She let out a roar that shook the windows of the house. Her message was clear. She wanted her baby back, and she saw the humans as a threat. Zara felt her blood turn to ice. They were trapped. Luna was still inside the greenhouse with the bear cub, and there was no way to get her out without facing 3 angry mother bears. But Luna seemed completely unaware of the danger. She continued, leading the bear cub toward the door, talking to it in her gentle voice. The cub followed her trustingly, its small body still trembling from the heat, but no longer on the verge of collapse. "Luna, baby, you need to come out very slowly," Zara called, trying to keep her voice calm. "Don't make any sudden movements." Luna looked up at her mother and smiled. "Mama, look. Luna's friend is better now." The bear cub took another step toward the door, and that's when Luna noticed something that made her stop dead in her tracks. The little bear was limping. Its left back paw was injured, probably from clawing at the glass walls of the greenhouse. "Hurt," Luna said, kneeling down again. She examined the cub's paw with the careful attention of a trained veterinarian. Poor friend hurt. What happened next would change everything they thought they knew about their daughter. Luna placed both of her small hands on the bear cub's injured paw and closed her eyes. She began humming, a melody that none of them had ever heard before. It was hauntingly beautiful, like a lullaby from another world. The bear cub went completely still, its eyes fixed on Luna's face, and it stopped making any sounds. For a moment, everything was silent except for Luna's humming. Then, slowly, the bear cub began to put weight on its injured paw. It took a tentative step, then another. The limp was gone. Kai stared at his daughter in shock. "That's impossible," he breathed. But Zara was watching the mother bears. The 3 adult females had stopped their aggressive posturing. They were standing at the edge of the clearing, watching Luna with what could only be described as reverence. The largest of the 3 bears slowly lowered herself to all 4s and took a step forward. Then another. She was approaching the greenhouse, but her movements were careful, non-threatening. Luna looked up and saw the approaching mother bear. Instead of being frightened, she smiled and waved her free hand. "Mama bear," she said happily. "Luna, help baby bear." The mother bear stopped just outside the greenhouse door. She was massive up close, easily weighing over 400 pounds. Her claws were as long as kitchen knives. But when she looked at Luna, her eyes were gentle. The bear cub let out a small cry of joy when it saw its mother. It tried to run toward her, but Luna held onto its paw. "Wait," Luna said firmly. "Still hot. Need water first." And that's when they realized that Luna wasn't just communicating with the bears through some kind of childish intuition. She was actually talking to them, and they were understanding her. The mother bear made a low rumbling sound, almost like purring. She seemed to be acknowledging Luna's words, agreeing that her cub needed care before they could be reunited. Luna led the bear cub out of the greenhouse and over to the garden hose that Kai had left running near his vegetable patch. She turned on the water and gently guided the stream over the cub's fur, cooling its overheated body. The bear cub closed its eyes in obvious relief. Steam rose from its fur as the cool water evaporated in the hot air. Luna continued to hum that strange, beautiful melody as she worked, and the cub remained perfectly calm under her care. Zara and Kai watched in stunned silence as their 18-month-old daughter performed what could only be called a miracle. She was healing the bear cub, not just physically but emotionally. The little animal trusted her completely, something that should have been impossible given the natural fear that wild animals have of humans. But the biggest shock was yet to come. As Luna finished cooling the bear cub, the other two adult bears began to approach. They moved slowly, cautiously, but without aggression. Soon, all three bears were sitting in a semicircle around Luna and the cub. Luna looked up at the gathered bears and clapped her hands in delight. "More friends," she exclaimed. That's when Zara noticed something that made her legs go weak. Each of the adult bears had scars, old injuries that had healed improperly. The mother bear had a long scar across her left shoulder. One of the other bears was missing the tip of her right ear. The third bear had a slight limp, favoring her right front paw. They had come seeking Luna's help, not just to reclaim the lost cub. Somehow, word had spread through the forest that there was a small human who could heal, who could communicate, who could help. Luna seemed to understand this instinctively. She walked over to the mother bear and placed her small hand on the large scar across the bear's shoulder. She began humming again, that otherworldly melody that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside her. The mother bear closed her eyes and let out a soft sigh. Under Luna's touch, the old scar began to fade. Not completely, but enough that it was clear the pain that had plagued the bear for years was finally easing. "This isn't possible," Kai whispered. "This can't be happening." But it was happening. Over the next hour, Luna tended to each of the bears in turn. She healed old wounds, eased chronic pain, and offered comfort in ways that defied all logic and reason. The bears accepted her care with grateful patience, as if they had been waiting their entire lives for this moment. As the sun reached its peak and the day grew even hotter, more bears began to emerge from the forest. First one, then two, then half a dozen. Soon, there were nearly 20 bears of various ages gathered in the Collins family's backyard, all waiting their turn to receive Luna's healing touch. Zara felt like she was living in a dream, or maybe a nightmare. Her daughter was surrounded by enough wild bears to populate a small zoo, and she was treating them like they were beloved pets. It should have been terrifying. Instead, it was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. But as more bears continued to arrive, Zara began to worry about something else entirely. How were they going to explain this to the outside world? What would happen when people found out about Luna's extraordinary gift? And more importantly, what did this mean for their daughter's future? Was Luna even human, or was she something else entirely? As if sensing her parents' growing anxiety, Luna looked up from where she was gently stroking a large male bear's scarred muzzle. Her eyes met Zara's, and for a moment Zara saw something ancient and wise in her daughter's gaze. Something that didn't belong in the eyes of an 18-month-old child. "Mama's scared," Luna observed, her small voice carrying clearly across the yard. She left the male bear and walked over to Zara, her tiny hand reaching up to touch her mother's face. "No scared, Mama. Luna helped friends. Friends good." But Zara's fear wasn't about the bears anymore. It was about the growing realization that her daughter was something beyond her understanding. The way Luna moved among the massive predators, the way they responded to her touch, the healing she performed, none of it was natural. None of it was human. Kai grabbed Zara's arm, his grip tight with urgency. "We need to get her inside," he whispered, "before someone sees this." But it was too late. In the distance, Zara could see a cloud of dust rising from the dirt road that led to their property. Someone was coming, driving fast. Her heart sank as she recognized the white SUV belonging to their neighbor, Marcus Reeves. Marcus was a retired park ranger who lived about 2 miles down the mountain. He was also the kind of man who couldn't mind his own business. If he saw what was happening in their backyard, the whole world would know within hours. "Luna, sweetheart," Zara called, trying to keep the panic out of her voice. "We need to go inside now." But Luna shook her head firmly. She pointed to a small female bear who had just emerged from the forest. This bear was different from the others. She was thin, almost skeletal, and her fur was patchy and dull. She walked with great difficulty, her breathing labored and shallow. "Sick friend," Luna said, her face serious with concern. "Very sick friend. Luna must help." The other bears seemed to sense the newcomer's condition. They moved aside, creating a clear path for the sick bear to approach Luna. But as the bear took a few faltering steps forward, she suddenly collapsed, her body convulsing. Luna immediately ran to the fallen bear, her small hands reaching out to touch the animal's heaving side. The moment her palms made contact, the convulsions stopped. The bear's breathing, while still labored, became more regular. "What's wrong with her?" Kai asked, though he wasn't sure if he was asking Luna or himself. Luna's face scrunched up in concentration as she kept her hands on the sick bear. She was quiet for a long moment, as if she was listening to something only she could hear. Finally, she looked up at her parents with tears in her eyes. "Baby bear sick inside," Luna said, her voice breaking with emotion. "Baby bear and Mama's tummy very sick, both gonna die." Zara felt her world tilt. Luna wasn't just saying the bear was sick. She was saying the bear was pregnant, and both mother and cubs were dying. But how could an 18-month-old child possibly know that? The sound of Marcus's SUV grew closer. Zara could see it now, bouncing down the rough mountain road toward their property. They had maybe 5 minutes before he arrived. "Luna, please," Zara begged. "We have to go inside. Someone's coming." But Luna was already deep in her healing trance. She had closed her eyes and was humming that strange, beautiful melody again. Her small hands moved slowly across the pregnant bear's swollen belly, and Zara could swear she saw a faint golden glow emanating from her daughter's palms. The other bears formed a protective circle around Luna and the sick bear. Their posture was alert, watchful. They sensed the approaching human as clearly as Zara did, and they didn't like it. Marcus's SUV pulled into the driveway, and Zara heard the engine shut off. Car door slammed. Footsteps crunched on gravel. He would be around the corner of the house in seconds. "Kai, do something," Zara whispered desperately, but Kai was staring at Luna in fascination. The golden glow around her hands was becoming more pronounced, and the sick bear's breathing was improving by the second. Whatever Luna was doing, it was working. "Marcus," Kai called loudly, hoping to stop their neighbor before he saw the bears. "Hey, Marcus, what brings you up here?" Marcus Reeves appeared around the corner of the house, his weathered face creased with concern. "I came to warn you folks about—" He stopped mid-sentence, his eyes widening as he took in the scene before him. 20 bears, his neighbors, and a tiny child in the middle of it all, glowing like some kind of angel. Marcus stood frozen for a full 10 seconds, his mouth hanging open. Then he slowly reached for the radio clipped to his belt. "Don't," Zara said quickly, stepping between Marcus and the bears. "Please, Marcus, let me explain." But there was no explaining this. Marcus had seen enough wildlife in his 40 years as a park ranger to know that what he was witnessing was impossible. Bears didn't gather in groups like this. They didn't sit peacefully around human children. And children definitely didn't glow with golden light while performing what looked like miracle healings. "What in the hell is going on here?" Marcus whispered, his voice shaky with disbelief. Before anyone could answer, Luna opened her eyes. The golden glow around her hands intensified for a moment, then faded away. The pregnant bear stirred, then slowly rose to her feet. She no longer looked sick. Her fur had regained its luster, her eyes were bright and alert, and her movements were strong and confident. Luna smiled and patted the bear's nose gently. "Baby bear's better now," she announced proudly. 3 baby bears in Mama's tummy. "All better." Marcus took a step backward, his hand moving toward his radio again. This can't be." That's when the pregnant bear did something that made Marcus's face go completely white. She turned toward him and in a voice that was unmistakably female and unmistakably intelligent, spoke, "Thank you for letting us come to the healer. We will not forget your kindness." Marcus stumbled backward, nearly falling over his own feet. Bears didn't talk. Bears couldn't talk. But he had just heard one speak as clearly as any human. Luna clapped her hands in delight. "Mama Bear can talk. Papa and Mama, did you hear? Mama Bear can talk." But Zara and Kai had heard more than that. They had heard the bear refer to Luna as the healer, as if she was known by that title. As if bears throughout the forest had been talking about her, spreading word of her abilities. "How long has this been going on?" Marcus managed to ask, his voice barely above a whisper. None of them had an answer. This was the first time they had witnessed Luna's abilities, but clearly it wasn't the first time the bears had encountered her. The way they responded to her, the way they trusted her, suggested a relationship that had been building for some time. Luna walked over to Marcus, seemingly unaware of his distress. She tugged on his pants leg with her small hand. "Mr. Marcus not scared," she said in her sweet, innocent voice. "Luna's friends good bears. They not hurt anybody." Marcus looked down at the tiny child, his mind struggling to process what he had witnessed. "Luna, sweetheart, how can you do what you just did?" Luna tilted her head, considering the question with the seriousness of a much older child. "Luna always could," she said simply, "since Luna was born. Mama and Papa not know, but Luna know. Forest friends need help, Luna help." "Forest friends?" Zara echoed, her heart sinking as she realized the implications. "Luna, have you been leaving the house? Have you been going into the forest?" Luna's face showed the first hint of guilt. She looked down at her feet and nodded slightly. Only when Mama and Papa sleeping. Luna hear friends calling. They hurt, they sad. Luna must help. The truth hit Zara like a physical blow. Luna had been sneaking out of the house at night, venturing into the dangerous mountain forest to heal injured animals. A child who could barely walk steadily had been wandering among predators in the dark. "Oh my God," Zara breathed. "Luna, that's so dangerous. You could have been killed." But even as she said it, Zara realized how ridiculous it sounded. Looking at the gathered bears, all of them sitting peacefully around Luna like devoted pets, it was clear that her daughter was in no danger from the wildlife. If anything, they seemed to be protecting her. Marcus finally found his voice again. "This has to be reported," he said, reaching for his radio. "The Department of Wildlife needs to know about this. And probably the CDC, and maybe the military." "No!" Zara and Kai shouted in unison. The bears, sensing the tension in the humans' voices, rose to their feet. They formed a tighter circle around Luna, their posture becoming more protective. The message was clear. They would not let anyone take the healer away. "Marcus, please," Zara pleaded. "She's just a baby. If the government finds out about this, they'll take her away. They'll want to study her, experiment on her. You know they will." Marcus looked conflicted. He was a man who believed in following rules and protocols, but he was also a father himself. He had grandchildren Luna's age. The thought of a toddler being subjected to government testing made his stomach turn. "But this is bigger than just your family," he said, though his conviction was wavering. "What she can do, it could change everything we know about medicine, about healing. People need to know." Luna, who had been listening to the adults argue, suddenly walked over to Marcus. She took his large, calloused hand in both of her tiny ones and looked up at him with her impossibly wise eyes. "Mr. Marcus hurt inside," she said softly. "Old hurt? Luna help?" Marcus jerked his hand away as if he'd been burned. "What? No, I'm not. I don't need—" But Luna had already seen what she needed to see. She placed her small hand on Marcus's chest, right over his heart. The golden glow returned, fainter than before, but still visible. Marcus gasped as he felt a warmth spreading through his chest. For the first time in 15 years, the constant ache in his heart, the result of a massive heart attack that had forced his early retirement, simply disappeared. The irregular rhythm that had plagued him for years smoothed out into a strong, steady beat. Tears streamed down Marcus's weathered face as he stared at the little girl who had just given him back his health. His hand moved to his radio, then stopped. He looked at Zara and Kai with new understanding. "If I report this," he said quietly, "they will take her away." Zara nodded, her own eyes filling with tears. "Please, Marcus, she's all we have. She's just a baby." Marcus looked at Luna, who was now back among the bears, gently checking on each of them one more time before they departed. The animals were beginning to disperse, disappearing back into the forest one by one. They had gotten what they came for. "I won't report it," Marcus said finally. "But you need to understand, this won't stay secret forever. Word will get out, and when it does, you'll need to be ready." As the last of the bears vanished into the tree line, Luna waved goodbye to them with her small hand. Then she turned back to her parents, her face bright with the innocent joy of a child who had just played with her favorite friends. "Luna hungry now," she announced, as if healing 24 wild animals was just another normal afternoon activity. "Can Luna have cookies?" But Zara barely heard her daughter's request. She was staring at the spot where the sick, pregnant bear had been lying just an hour before. There, pressed into the soft earth, was a perfect paw print. But it wasn't just any paw print. It was glowing with the same golden light that had emanated from Luna's hands. The print pulsed once, twice, then faded away, leaving behind only ordinary dirt. But Zara had seen it. They all had. And they all understood what it meant. Luna's power wasn't just healing. It was transforming everything it touched, leaving behind traces of something that wasn't quite natural. Something that was both beautiful and terrifying in its implications. As they watched, more paw prints began to appear throughout the yard, glowing briefly before fading away. Each one marked a spot where one of Luna's friends had been healed. The entire backyard was lighting up like a constellation of golden stars, and in the distance, carried on the mountain wind, they could hear something that made their blood run cold. Howling. Not from wolves or coyotes, but from something else entirely. Something that had heard about the healer and was coming to seek her help. Luna heard it too. She tilted her head, listening intently. Then she smiled and clapped her hands together. "More friends coming," she announced joyfully. Luna helped more friends. But as the howling grew closer, Zara realized with growing horror that whatever was coming wasn't bears. The sound was deeper, more primal, more dangerous, and Luna, their miraculous, impossible daughter, was getting ready to welcome it with open arms. The howling grew louder, more urgent. It wasn't the sound of one creature, but many. A pack of something moving through the forest with purpose and speed. The remaining bears who hadn't yet departed turned their heads toward the sound, their ears flattening against their skulls. Even they seemed uneasy. "We need to get inside. Now," Kai said, moving toward Luna. But Luna held up her small hand, stopping him in his tracks. "No, Papa. Friends coming. Hurt friends. Luna must help." "Luna, sweetheart," Zara said, kneeling down to her daughter's level. "Some animals are too dangerous even for you. Please, let's go inside and—" A massive shape burst through the tree line, moving faster than anything that size should be able to move. At first glance, it looked like a wolf, but it was enormous. Easily the size of a small horse. Its fur was jet black with silver streaks, and its eyes glowed an unnatural electric blue in the afternoon sunlight. Behind it came others. 5, 6, 7 of them. They weren't quite wolves, weren't quite dogs, but something in between, something that shouldn't exist. Marcus stumbled backward, his hand instinctively reaching for the hunting knife on his belt. "Those aren't. What the hell are those things?" The lead creature stopped about 20 feet from Luna, its massive head lowered, its electric blue eyes fixed on the little girl. It was breathing heavily, and Zara could see that its left flank was torn open, exposing raw flesh beneath the matted fur. The wound looked infected, angry red lines spreading outward from the gash. Luna took a step toward the creature without hesitation. "Luna, no!" Zara screamed, lunging forward to grab her daughter. But the remaining bears moved to block her path. The large male who had been among the first to arrive positioned himself between Zara and Luna, his message clear. The healer must not be interfered with. "Big friend hurt bad," Luna said, walking steadily toward the massive wolf creature. "Luna, help big friend." The creature, whatever it was, lowered itself to the ground, bringing its head level with Luna's. Up close, Zara could see that its eyes held an intelligence that was disturbingly human. This wasn't just an animal, it was something more. Luna placed her small hands on either side of the creature's massive head, looking directly into those glowing blue eyes. For a moment, they stared at each other in perfect silence. Then, Luna's face changed, her expression becoming sad and wise beyond her years. "You not supposed to be here," she whispered to the creature. "You from faraway place. You running from bad men. The creature made a sound that was half whine, half growl. It was communicating with Luna, Zara realized, just like the bears had been. "What is she saying?" Marcus whispered, his voice tight with fear and fascination. Luna continued her silent conversation with the creature for several more moments. Then she nodded gravely and began to examine the infected wound on its flank. The moment her fingers touched the torn flesh, the creature relaxed completely, as if Luna's touch had taken away all its pain. "They experiments," Luna said suddenly, her young voice carrying clearly across the yard. "Bad men make them in lab, hurt them, change them, make them different." Zara felt her blood turn to ice. Experiments? Labs? What was Luna talking about? "They escaped from lab," Luna continued, her hands now glowing with that familiar golden light as she worked to heal the creature's wound. "Run, far, far away, but bad men follow, still looking for them." The other wolf creatures had formed a protective circle around Luna and their injured leader. They kept glancing toward the forest, their ears constantly twitching, listening for sounds of pursuit. "Luna," Kai said carefully, "how do you know all this?" Luna looked up from her healing work, her face serious. Big Friend tell Luna, not with words, with pictures in Luna's head. Bad men make Big Friend and other friends in place with white walls and bright lights, stick them with needles, make them bigger, stronger, smarter, but also make them hurt inside. As Luna spoke, the wound on the creature's flank was visibly healing. The angry red infection lines were fading, and new fur was beginning to grow over the damaged area. But something else was happening too. The creature's eyes were changing, becoming less wild, more gentle. "They good friends now," Luna announced, patting the creature's massive head, but still scared, still running from bad men. That's when they heard it. The distant sound of helicopters. Multiple helicopters, growing closer by the minute. Marcus grabbed his binoculars from his SUV and scanned the horizon. "Military," he said grimly. "3 choppers, heading straight for us." The wolf creatures immediately became agitated, pacing and whining with obvious distress. Their leader struggled to its feet, the healing complete, but its fear overriding everything else. "They found us," Luna said matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather. "Bad men found big friends." "Luna, we have to hide," Zara said urgently. "All of us. If they see what you can do, no hiding," Luna said firmly. "Big friends need help. Luna, help." The helicopters were close enough now that they could make out the details. Military aircraft, unmarked but clearly government. As they watched, the lead helicopter began to circle the property, obviously looking for something. Or someone. Luna walked to the center of the yard and raised her small arms above her head. The golden glow that usually emanated from her hands when she was healing suddenly expanded, enveloping her entire body. She looked like a tiny angel, blazing with divine light. "Luna calls all friends," she said, her voice somehow carrying much farther than it should have been able to. "All forest friends come help big friends." What happened next defied every law of nature Zara had ever learned. The forest came alive. Bears emerged from the trees, dozens of them, far more than had been there before. Deer bounded into the clearing, their usual fear of predators completely absent. A massive mountain lion padded silently out of the undergrowth, followed by a family of wildcats. But it wasn't just the mammals. Birds filled the sky. Eagles, hawks, owls, songbirds of every variety. They swooped and circled overhead, their combined cries creating a cacophony that could be heard for miles. Even the insects responded to Luna's call. The air shimmered with clouds of butterflies, and the ground seemed to move as thousands of beetles and other crawling creatures converged on the property. "My God," Marcus breathed, She's calling every living thing in the forest." The lead helicopter began to descend, looking for a place to land. As it did, a voice boomed from a loudspeaker mounted on the aircraft. "This is Colonel Sarah Martinez of the U.S. Army Special Research Division. We are tracking 7 escaped test subjects last seen in this area. Please evacuate the premises immediately for your own safety." Test subjects. So, Luna had been right. The wolf creatures were experiments, created in some government laboratory and now being hunted by their creators. Luna looked up at the helicopter with her innocent, trusting eyes. Then she cupped her small hands around her mouth and shouted back, "Bad men, go away!" Big friends, safe with Luna now. Her young voice shouldn't have been audible over the roar of the helicopter rotors, but somehow it carried clearly to the aircraft above. The helicopter wobbled slightly, as if the pilot had been startled by the response. The wolf creatures had positioned themselves around Luna in a protective formation. The largest one, the leader that Luna had healed, stood directly in front of her, its massive body serving as a shield between the little girl and the descending aircraft. "We need to run," Kai said desperately. "If they take Luna, we'll never see her again." But even as he said it, Kai realized the futility of trying to escape. They were surrounded by military helicopters, and any attempt to flee would only make them look guilty. The lead helicopter touched down in the meadow adjacent to their property, its rotors continuing to spin. Armed soldiers poured out, weapons drawn but not yet aimed. They were followed by a tall woman in military uniform who had to be Colonel Martinez. As the soldiers approached, the army of forest animals that Luna had summoned began to move. The bears formed the front line, standing on their hind legs to display their full, intimidating height. The mountain lion crouched low, ready to pounce. Even the birds overhead seemed to be positioning themselves for an attack. "Stand down!" Colonel Martinez shouted, though it wasn't clear if she was addressing the animals or her own soldiers. "Nobody shoots unless I give the order." Luna walked toward the colonel with the fearless confidence of a child who had never known real danger. The wolf creatures moved with her, maintaining their protective formation. "Hello, lady," Luna said cheerfully when she was close enough to be heard without shouting. "Luna is Luna. These are Luna's big friends. You cannot take them." Colonel Martinez stared at the little girl in obvious confusion. She had clearly been expecting to find dangerous escaped experiments, not a toddler having a tea party with every animal in the forest. "Little girl," the colonel said carefully, "those aren't pets. They're dangerous creatures that escaped from a secure facility. They could hurt you." Luna looked back at the wolf creatures, then at the colonel. She giggled, the sound innocent and musical. "Big friends, not dangerous. They scared. You make them scared with needles and bright lights and white walls." The colonel's face went white. "How could you possibly know about—" She stopped herself, realizing she was about to reveal classified information. "Luna know lots of things," Luna said simply. "Luna help hurt friends. Big friends hurt inside and outside. Luna make better." As if to demonstrate, Luna walked over to one of the smaller wolf creatures, one that had been limping badly. She placed her glowing hands on its injured leg, and within seconds, the creature was walking normally again. The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. Several of them lowered their weapons slightly, clearly struggling to reconcile what they were seeing with their training. Colonel Martinez stepped closer, her scientific curiosity overriding her military caution. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Luna Collins," Luna replied politely. "Luna live here with Mama and Papa. These Luna's friends. They hurt, Luna help. That what Luna do?" "And how exactly do you help them, Luna?" Luna held up her small hands, and the golden glow intensified. Luna touch hurt friends, make better. Sometimes Luna sing to them. They like Luna's singing. The colonel turned to look at Zara and Kai, who had been standing frozen with terror throughout the exchange. Are you her parents? Zara nodded, not trusting her voice to remain steady. How long has she been able to do this? Colonel Martinez gestured at the crowd of healed animals surrounding Luna. We just found out today, Kai said hoarsely. We had no idea she could. We thought she was just a normal little girl. But even as he said it, Kai remembered all the times Luna had seemed different. The way she never got sick, even when both parents came down with the flu. The way injured birds seemed to recover impossibly quickly when Luna was around. The way their neighbor's dying dog had suddenly regained its health after Luna had petted it. The signs had been there all along. They just hadn't known what they were looking at. Colonel Martinez studied Luna with the intensity of a scientist examining a fascinating new specimen. Luna, the big friends you're protecting, do you know where they came from? Luna nodded gravely. Bad place. White Walls place. Men in white coats stick them with needles, make them different. Make them bigger and stronger, but also make them hurt inside. They not like being different. They want to go home, but they forget where home is. The colonel's jaw tightened. The child somehow knew details about a classified military program that should have been impossible for her to access. The big friends escaped because they scared, Luna continued. They think you gonna take them back to White Walls place, but Luna tell them, Luna protect them, Luna make them safe. One of the soldiers stepped forward. Colonel, we have orders to retrieve the subjects by any means necessary. The longer they remain in the wild, the greater the risk of... I know what our orders are, Sergeant, Colonel Martinez snapped. Then she looked back at Luna, who was now sitting cross-legged on the ground with the massive wolf creature's head resting in her lap. Luna, the colonel said carefully, the big friends are very special. They need special care that only we can provide. If you really want to help them, you should let us take them back where they belong. Luna's face scrunched up in the way it did when she was thinking very hard about something. She looked into the wolf creature's glowing blue eyes for a long moment, as if having a silent conversation. Then she shook her head firmly. Big friend say White Walls place not home. White Walls place hurt place. Big friends want to stay in forest, be free, be happy. Luna help them be free and happy. Sweetheart, you don't understand. These creatures are dangerous. They're not like normal animals. They could... Luna stood up abruptly, her small face showing anger for the first time since the soldiers had arrived. Big friends, not dangerous. You make them dangerous. You hurt them and change them and make them scared. Now you want to hurt them more. The golden glow around Luna intensified dramatically, becoming almost blindingly bright. Every animal in the clearing responded to her emotional state, their own agitation rising to match hers. The bears roared in unison. The mountain lion hissed and bared its fangs. The birds overhead began diving at the soldiers, who raised their arms to protect their faces. Luna angry, the little girl declared, her voice somehow carrying with the force of thunder. Bad men go away. Leave Luna's friends alone. The ground beneath their feet began to tremble. Not an earthquake, but something else entirely. The very earth seemed to be responding to Luna's emotional state. Colonel Martinez raised her hands in a gesture of surrender. Okay, Luna, okay, we won't hurt your friends. Please just calm down. But Luna was beyond calming. Her anger had unleashed something inside her, something much more powerful than simple healing abilities. The golden light emanating from her body was changing, becoming shot through with silver and white. The air around her began to shimmer with heat waves, as if she was generating enormous amounts of energy. "Luna!" Zara screamed, running toward her daughter despite the chaos surrounding them. "Baby, please, you need to calm down." But as Zara got closer to Luna, something extraordinary happened. The moment she stepped into the sphere of golden light surrounding her daughter, she felt a surge of something. Power, knowledge, understanding. Suddenly, she could sense the emotions of every animal in the clearing. She could feel their fear, their pain, their desperate hope that Luna would protect them. More than that, she could understand their thoughts. The wolf creatures weren't just escaped experiments. They were intelligent beings, as smart as humans, but trapped in bodies that had been artificially enhanced and modified. They had escaped not just from a laboratory, but from a life of torture and experimentation. And Luna wasn't just healing them. She was giving them back their humanity. The realization hit Zara like a physical blow. Her daughter wasn't just gifted. She was something far beyond human understanding. Something that could bridge the gap between species, between the natural world and the artificial, between what was and what could be. As Luna's anger reached its peak, every electronic device for miles around began to malfunction. The soldiers' radios crackled with static. The helicopter's engines sputtered and died. Even Marcus's SUV alarm started blaring randomly. But in the midst of all this chaos, Luna suddenly stopped glowing. She looked around at the pandemonium she had created, and her small face crumpled with distress. "Luna, sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the noise. "Luna, not mean to make everyone scared." The moment Luna's anger subsided, the golden light around her dimmed to its usual gentle glow. The animals began to calm down, though they remained protectively positioned around her. The electronic interference stopped, allowing the helicopter engines to restart. Colonel Martinez approached slowly, her hand still raised in a non-threatening gesture. "Luna, nobody's scared of you. We just want to understand. What you can do, it's amazing. It could help a lot of people." Luna looked up at the colonel with her impossibly wise eyes. "Luna help people every day. Luna help hurt friends in forest. That enough? But think about all the sick people in hospitals," the colonel pressed. "Children with cancer, soldiers who were hurt in wars. You could heal them all." For a moment, Luna's face showed interest. The idea of helping more hurt friends clearly appealed to her. But then the largest wolf creature nuzzled her shoulder, reminding her of the immediate situation. "First, Luna help big friends," she said firmly. "Then maybe Luna help other people. But Luna not go to White Wall's place. Luna stay with Mama and Papa." Colonel Martinez glanced at her soldiers, clearly weighing her options. She had orders to retrieve the escaped experiments, but the situation had become far more complicated than anyone had anticipated. "What if we made a deal?" she suggested. "What if the big friends could stay in the forest, but we set up a special place for them? A safe place where they could be free but also protected?" Luna considered this carefully, once again having one of her silent conversations with the wolf creature leader. "Where?" she asked finally. "There's a wildlife preserve about 50 miles north of here. It's protected land, no hunting allowed. The big friends could live there safely and nobody would bother them." "And Luna can visit big friends?" Colonel Martinez hesitated. "Luna, what you can do, it's very special. There are people who would want to study it, to understand it better. It might not be safe for you to—" "No study," Luna said firmly. "No needles, no white walls, no bright lights. Luna, stay with Mama and Papa and help forest friends." The standoff continued for several tense moments. Finally, Colonel Martinez made a decision that would have far-reaching consequences for everyone involved. All right, Luna. Here's what we're going to do. The big friends can go to the wildlife preserve and you can visit them whenever you want. But in exchange, you have to promise me something. What promise? Promise that if people get hurt, really badly hurt, and the doctors can't help them, you'll try to help them too. Just like you help your forest friends. Luna thought about this for a long moment. Then she nodded solemnly. Luna promise. Luna help all hurt friends, people friends, and animal friends. As the agreement was reached, the tension in the clearing began to ease. The forest animals started to disperse, returning to their natural habitats. The wolf creatures, sensing that the immediate danger had passed, began to relax their protective formation around Luna. But as the drama seemed to be winding down, Marcus grabbed Zara's arm with an urgency that made her heart skip. "Look," he whispered, pointing toward the forest. "Look at the trees." Zara followed his gaze and felt her breath catch in her throat. Where Luna's golden light had touched the forest during her emotional outburst, the trees were changing. They were growing taller, their leaves becoming more vibrant, their trunks thickening with impossible speed. The forest itself was being transformed by Luna's power. And if the trees were changing, what else might be affected? As if reading her thoughts, Colonel Martinez was already on her radio, calling for additional personnel and equipment. The situation had just become much bigger than a simple retrieval mission. Luna, oblivious to the new complications her abilities had created, was saying goodbye to each of the wolf creatures individually, promising to visit them soon at their new home. But Zara couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. If Luna's power was strong enough to transform entire forests, what would happen as she grew older and stronger? And more importantly, would they be able to keep her safe from the people who would inevitably want to use her abilities for their own purposes? As the military convoy prepared to escort the wolf creatures to their new sanctuary, Luna stood with her parents, watching her transformed friends disappear into the forest one last time before their relocation. The golden paw prints scattered across their yard had begun to pulse with a gentle rhythm, like a heartbeat made of light. Colonel Martinez approached them one final time, her expression a mixture of awe and concern. "Mrs. Collins, Mr. Collins, I need you to understand the magnitude of what we witnessed today. Your daughter's abilities, they're unlike anything we've ever encountered." Zara pulled Luna closer, her protective instincts stronger than ever. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that word of this will spread, despite our best efforts to contain it. There will be scientists, government officials, maybe even foreign agents who will want to study Luna. You need to be prepared for that reality." Kai stepped forward, his jaw set with determination. "They can't have her. She's our daughter, not some lab specimen." The colonel nodded slowly. "I understand your position, and for what it's worth, I agree with you, but I can't protect her from everyone. The best I can do is ensure that the official report classifies this incident as a successful retrieval of escaped assets, with no mention of Luna's involvement." Luna, who had been quietly listening to the adult conversation, suddenly tugged on Colonel Martinez's uniform. "Lady Colonel, you hurt inside too." The colonel knelt down to Luna's level, her professional composure slipping slightly. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Luna placed her small hand on the colonel's chest, just as she had done with Marcus earlier. "You lose someone very important, makes you hurt inside all the time." Tears welled up in Colonel Martinez's eyes. She had lost her daughter in a car accident 3 years ago, a loss that had driven her to throw herself into her military work, trying to escape the constant ache of grief. Can you help with that kind of hurt, Luna?" Luna's expression grew sad and wise. "That kind of hurt different, that hurt from love. Luna cannot take away love hurt, because love hurt part of love. But Luna can make love hurt less heavy. She began to hum that ethereal melody that had become familiar to all of them. As she did, a gentle golden glow emanated from her small hand, and Colonel Martinez felt something shift inside her chest. The crushing weight of grief that had pressed down on her for years began to ease, not disappearing entirely, but transforming into something bearable. A bittersweet memory of love rather than devastating loss. "Thank you," the colonel whispered, fresh tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, Luna." As the helicopters prepared for departure, Luna ran to each of the wolf creatures one more time, whispering something in their ears that made their glowing blue eyes brighten with hope. The largest one nuzzled her cheek gently before joining the others for their journey to freedom. "Luna will visit soon," she called after them as they were loaded into specially designed transport containers. "Luna, promise." After the military convoy disappeared over the horizon, an extraordinary silence settled over the Collins property. The pulsing golden paw prints began to fade, but they didn't disappear entirely. Instead, they transformed into permanent patches of the most beautiful flowers any of them had ever seen. Blooms that seemed to glow with their own inner light. "Look," Marcus said softly, pointing to the greenhouse where this had all begun. The entire structure had been transformed. What had once been a simple glass building was now covered in flowering vines that sparkled like diamonds in the afternoon sunlight. The plants inside had grown into something magnificent. Not just tropical flowers, but species that shouldn't exist, hybrids of earthly and otherworldly beauty. Luna clapped her hands in delight. Pretty flowers. Luna's friends made pretty flowers. But the most remarkable change was yet to be discovered. As they walked back toward the house, Zara noticed that every plant Luna had touched during her healing sessions had begun to produce fruit and flowers simultaneously, something that defied all natural law. Their vegetable garden was now a wonderland of abundance, with tomatoes and roses growing side by side, apple trees bearing fruit alongside blooming cherry blossoms. "The whole property," Kai breathed in amazement. "She's transformed the whole property into something magical." That evening, as they sat on their back porch watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors, Luna curled up in her mother's lap with the contentment of a child who had done something wonderful. "Mama," she said sleepily, "Luna helped lots of friends today." "Yes, baby, you did," Zara replied, stroking her daughter's hair. "You helped so many friends." "And Luna help more friends tomorrow?" Zara looked out at their transformed land, at the flowers that glowed with inner light, at the trees that had grown taller and stronger under Luna's influence. In the distance, she could see movement in the forest, not threatening, but curious. Word was spreading through the woodland community that the healer lived here, and animals from far and wide would continue to seek her help. "Yes, Luna," Zara said softly. "You'll help more friends tomorrow, and the day after that, and for as long as you want to." Luna smiled and closed her eyes. Good. Luna liked helping friends. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, they seemed to shine more brightly over the Collins property than anywhere else. The very air seemed to shimmer with possibility and hope. Marcus, who had stayed for dinner in the evening's quiet reflection, shook his head in wonder. "You know, I've been around wildlife for 40 years, and I thought I'd seen everything. But this changes everything we thought we knew about the world." "What do you think happens now?" Kai asked. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, watching the gentle golden glow that emanated from the flowers scattered throughout their yard. "I think the world just became a more magical place. And I think your little girl is going to make it even more magical as she grows up." Luna stirred in her mother's arms, murmuring something in her sleep. As she did, every flower in their garden pulsed once with golden light, as if responding to her dreams. "The question isn't what happens now," Zara said softly, holding her extraordinary daughter close. "The question is, are we ready for the wonderful, terrifying, absolutely incredible journey we're about to go on?" As if in answer to her question, a gentle breeze carried the sound of distant animal calls through the night air. Not cries of distress, but songs of joy and healing. Luna's reputation was spreading throughout the forest, and tomorrow would bring new friends, new challenges, and new miracles. The little girl who had started the day as an ordinary toddler playing with blocks had ended it as something far more significant. A bridge between the human world and the natural world, a healer whose touch could transform not just individual lives but the very environment around her. And in the morning, when Luna woke up refreshed and ready to help more friends, the real adventure would begin. But for now, under a canopy of unusually bright stars and surrounded by flowers that glowed with the essence of pure love and healing, the Collins family held each other close and marveled at the beautiful, impossible, life-changing day that had revealed their daughter's true nature. Luna Collins, barely 18 months old, had become something the world had never seen before. A healer whose power came not from science or medicine, but from the purest form of love and compassion. And as she slept peacefully in her mother's arms, her small hand glowing faintly with residual golden light, every living thing within miles rested easier, knowing that the healer was near. The bear cub that had started it all was now safe with its family deep in the forest, its fur still shimmering with traces of Luna's healing touch. The wolf creatures were beginning their new life in Sank,